My name is Julie Clarkson. I'm 29 years old, and I got the call at 11:43 p.m. on a Thursday night, the kind of hour where nothing good ever comes from an unknown number lighting up your phone. I was already in bed. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a long day when even the walls feel tired. Darren, my boyfriend of 18 months, was asleep beside me, one arm thrown lazily across my waist, breathing slow and even. I just slipped out of bed to grab a glass of water when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the name, Mark Reynolds, Darren's best friend. That alone was strange. Mark had never called me directly before. We weren't close like that. Cordial, yes. Friendly in group settings. Polite texts about birthdays or plans, but never a one-on-one late-night phone call. My stomach tightened. I answered quietly and stepped into the hallway, lowering my voice instinctively. Hello. What came through the speaker wasn't words, it was sobbing. Loud, broken, messy sobbing. The kind that makes your chest ache just listening to it. I'm so sorry, Mark choked out. I didn't want to be the one to tell you. I really didn't. But I can't keep watching this happen to you. My heart dropped into my stomach. Mark, what are you talking about? A sharp inhale, another sob. He's cheating on you. The hallway felt suddenly too small, too dark. What? I have proof, he rushed on, voice shaking. Photos. I've had them for weeks. I didn't know what to do. But you're such a good person, Julie. You don't deserve this. I leaned against the wall, my hand flat against the cool paint, trying to slow my breathing. Darren would never. I wish that were true, Mark said softly. I really do. But I wouldn't lie about something like this. There it was. The sentence that cracked something open in my chest. Send them, I said. There was a pause. Are you sure they're pretty bad? Send them. Seconds later, my phone buzzed. 12 photos. I sat on the floor and scrolled through them one by one. Darren with another woman, her sitting on his lap at a bar, his arm around her shoulders, their faces close, laughing. One photo showed them walking into what looked like a hotel lobby together. It felt like watching someone else's life fall apart. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't run back into the bedroom and shake him awake like every instinct in my body wanted me to. Instead, I stared at the photos until my hands stopped shaking. Thank you for telling me, I said finally. My voice sounded distant, even to me. I need time to process this. I'm here for you, Mark said quickly. Whatever you need. I know. I hung up, went back to bed, and lay there beside the man I loved, staring at his face in the dim light, the familiar lines, the soft crease between his brows, the steady rise and fall of his chest. The photos replayed behind my eyes over and over again. But beneath the shock, beneath the hurt, something else stirred. A quiet, insistent thought. Something wasn't right. And that feeling was the only thing keeping me from breaking apart. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I drifted in and out of shallow, half-dreams, my mind looping the same images over and over until they lost their sharpness and became something else entirely, puzzles instead of wounds. Darren woke up before me just after 7. He kissed my forehead like he always did, murmured that he'd make coffee, and padded toward the kitchen without any idea that my entire reality had tilted on its axis a few hours earlier. I watched him go, my chest tight, my heart still racing, but now layered over the panic was a strange calm, a cold focus, the kind that shows up when your instincts refuse to accept what your eyes are being shown. After he left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and my phone, sunlight creeping slowly across the floor. I pulled the photos back up. Really looked at them this time. At first glance, they were convincing. Anyone would think so. That was the point. But the longer I stared, the more details began to whisper instead of scream. Darren's hair. In the photos, it was shorter. Not dramatically, but enough that it caught my attention. When we met, he'd already been growing it out for months. I remembered teasing him about the awkward phase, the way it kept falling into his eyes. In the photos, that phase was gone. His hair was clean-cut styled the way he used to wear it years ago, based on old pictures I'd seen. Then there was the bar. I zoomed in on the background. Neon sign, dark wood paneling, a mural behind the counter. It wasn't anywhere we went now. We were creatures of habit, same 3 places, same bartenders who already knew our orders. I'd never seen that bar before. My pulse slowed just slightly. I moved on to the woman. Her dress style screamed a different era. The makeup, too. Bold liner matte lipstick. Trends shift fast, but not that fast. And then I noticed her nails bright blue with tiny stars. I froze. Darren had shown me an old picture once, laughing about how his ex had gone through a galaxy nail art phase in her mid-20s. He'd said it like a throwaway comment. At the time, I hadn't thought twice about it. Now I was thinking about it a lot. I swallowed and checked the file details. I'm not some tech wizard, but I know enough to be dangerous. I downloaded the images, right-clicked, and opened the metadata. Date taken November 14th, 3 years and 4 months ago. I stared at the screen, my breath caught halfway in. 3 years and 4 months ago, Darren and I didn't even know each other existed. We met a year and a half ago at a mutual friend's birthday party in March. I remembered the night clearly, how he'd spilled a drink on my shoes and insisted on buying me another round as an apology. How easy it had felt from the start. I checked the next photo. Same weekend. Another. Same. All 12 images were from the same time frame. Different angles, different moments, but all locked firmly in a past that predated me entirely. I leaned back in my chair and let out a shaky laugh that quickly turned into something close to a sob. Darren wasn't cheating on me. He had dated someone before me. That was it. That was the crime. Which meant the real question wasn't what had he done. It was why had Mark lied. I thought back to the phone call, the sobbing, the urgency, the way he'd framed it like a moral dilemma he'd struggled with for weeks, the way he'd said, "I can't watch this happen to you anymore." It hadn't sounded rehearsed, but it had sounded practiced. I did something next that I'm not proud of, but I don't regret either. I opened Mark's social media and started scrolling. Not just recent posts, not just last year. I went back years back, screenshots piling up in a folder on my desktop as I went. Cryptic captions, vague heartbreak quotes, posts about timing missed chances watching someone choose the wrong person. 3 years ago, right around the time those photos were taken, the tone was dark, bitter. Long stretches of silence broken by dramatic declarations about loyalty and being invisible. Then about 6 months before Darren and I met, the tone shifted. Hopeful. New chapter energy. Sometimes the universe clears the path, letting go of what doesn't serve you. My skin prickled. I kept going until I found it. A group photo from 2 years ago. Darren, a few friends, Mark standing close. Too close. In the comments, someone had joked, "Still waiting for you to make a move, man." Mark had replied with a laughing emoji and 3 words that made my stomach drop. Timing is everything. I closed the laptop slowly. The truth settled in my chest, heavy and undeniable. Mark hadn't called me out of concern. He'd called because he'd been waiting for this moment for years, and when it became clear that Darren and I weren't a phase, he decided to manufacture an ending. I looked at my phone. A new message lit up the screen. "How are you holding up? Have you talked to him yet? I'm here if you need anything." I didn't respond. Not yet. Because now I wasn't reacting. I was planning. I didn't confront Darren right away. I know how that sounds. Most people would have woken their partner up the moment doubt crossed their mind. Demanded answers, demanded reassurance, demanded the truth. But I needed more than reassurance. I needed certainty. Because if I was wrong, if I let myself believe Mark's story for even a second, I would be handing him exactly what he wanted. So I waited. For 2 days, I watched Darren like someone relearning a familiar language. I paid attention to the small things, the way he checked in during the day, the way he still reached for my hand when we crossed the street, the way he talked about us without hesitation, without guilt. There was no nervousness, no distance, no slip in behavior that suggested a man hiding something. But Mark couldn't help himself. He texted me constantly. "Any updates? I hate that you're going through this. You deserve so much better than being lied to." Every message felt like a push, a nudge toward the explosion he was waiting for. On the second night after dinner, I asked Darren if we could talk. He noticed the tone immediately. His shoulders tensed just slightly as we sat on the couch. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "You've been kind of quiet." I took a breath, steadying myself. "Mark called me Thursday night," I said. "He told me you were cheating on me." The color drained from his face. What? His voice cracked. Disbelief, sharp and immediate. "Julie, that's insane. I would never." "I know," I said, gently lifting a hand before he could spiral. "I know because the photos he sent me are from more than 3 years ago, before we even met." He froze. "Photos," he echoed. I showed him. He stared at the screen, his confusion deepening with every image. Then his eyes widened with recognition. That's my ex," he said slowly. "Those were taken when we were dating. How did he even get these?" That question hung between us, heavy and loaded. "I was hoping you could tell me," I said. Darren grabbed his phone, scrolling furiously. His jaw tightened as he pieced it together. "He was there that weekend," he muttered. "We all were. He took some of these." I remember because my phone camera was broken and he said he'd send them to me later. He looked up at me, something breaking in his expression. He kept them, he said, for years. And suddenly it all clicked into place. I showed him everything. The old posts, the comments, the pattern of behavior, the messages he'd sent me since the call. Darren read through it all in silence, his hands trembling slightly. When he finally looked up, his eyes were glassy. "He's been my best friend since college," he said quietly. 8 years. I told him everything. About you. About how serious this is. About how I think you might be the one. I swallowed. That might be why he did it now. Darren stood up, pacing. Anger, hurt, betrayal, all of it warring across his face. "He tried to destroy my relationship," he said. Because he's in love with you," I said softly. The words landed hard. Darren stopped pacing. He ran a hand through his hair, disbelief giving way to something darker. "No," he said. "He knows I'm straight. He's always known." "Feelings don't always care about that," I replied. He sank back onto the couch, staring at the floor. "I need to confront him," he said finally. "I need to hear him admit it." "Not yet," I said. He looked up at me, surprised. "I have an idea," I continued. "But you need to trust me." There was a long pause. Then Darren nodded. "I do," he said. "Whatever you think is best." That trust, fragile, powerful, settled something inside me. I picked up my phone and typed out a message I knew would hook Mark immediately. "Can we meet? I haven't told Darren yet. I need advice on how to handle this." The reply came back in under 5 seconds. "Of course, I'm here for you. Coffee tomorrow." I stared at the screen, my resolve hardening. Mark thought he was in control. By this time tomorrow, he wouldn't be. Mark suggested a cafe near the park. Public casual, the kind of place people choose when they want to look harmless. I agreed immediately. What he didn't know was that Darren and I had already planned every detail. The cafe had large front windows and an indoor seating area that looked directly onto the outdoor tables. The plan was simple. I would sit outside with Mark. Darren would be inside, close enough to hear, close enough to see recording everything. On Sunday afternoon, I arrived early. Darren was already inside when I walked past the window, his posture tense, but controlled his phone, resting face down on the table in front of him. He didn't look at me. That was part of it, too. No tells, no cracks. Mark showed up 5 minutes late. He looked concerned in a way that felt rehearsed. Soft eyes, furrowed brow. Sympathetic tilt of the head. The perfect performance of a man burdened by truth. "Julie," he said, pulling out the chair across from me. "How are you holding up?" I let my shoulders slump just enough to sell it. "Not great," I admitted. "I can't stop looking at the photos." He nodded gravely. "I've figured. I hate that you're going through this." "I keep wondering how long it's been going on," I said quietly. How he could look me in the eye and lie. Mark leaned forward. "That's what hurts the most," he said. "The lying." I swallowed, then looked up at him. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you get the photos?" There it was. The tiniest hesitation. A flicker of calculation behind his eyes. "He showed them to me," Mark said smoothly. "He was drunk. Bragging, actually. Said you were clueless." My stomach turned, not because I believed him, but because of how easily the lie came out. "When was this?" I asked. "About a month ago." I nodded slowly. "That's interesting." His brow creased. "Why?" "Because the photos were taken 3 years ago," I said. "The metadata confirms it." For a split second, his mask slipped. What he said too quickly. "The woman in the photos is Darren's ex," I continued calmly. "They broke up over 2 years ago. He's engaged now, actually. Lives in another state." That can't be right," Mark stammered. "He told me." "He didn't tell you anything," I interrupted. "You were there when those photos were taken. You took some of them yourself." Silence. "I can see your reflection in the window in one of them," I added. "Photo number 7. His jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Yes, you do," I replied. "You saved photos from his past relationship. Then you sent them to me, framing them as proof of current cheating. You cried on the phone, pretended to be torn up about telling me when in reality you were just trying to break us up." He scoffed. "That's ridiculous. Why would I do that?" I leaned back in my chair. "Because you're in love with him. You have been for years. And when it became clear that he wasn't going to end up single again, when you realized I wasn't temporary, you panicked." His face hardened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I do," I said. "I've seen your posts, the comments from your friends, the timing of everything. You've been waiting for him to choose you." Mark stood abruptly, chair scraping against the pavement. "This is insane," he snapped. "I was trying to help you. You were trying to destroy his relationship so you could step in." I nodded toward the cafe window. "Look inside." He turned, and there was Darren, standing just inside the glass phone raised recording everything. His face was pale, his expression a mixture of heartbreak and resolve. The color drained from Mark's face, and in that moment the truth finally had nowhere left to hide. For a second, Mark just stood there frozen, staring through the glass like he'd seen a ghost. Then Darren stepped outside. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He moved with a calm that felt heavier than anger ever could. He stopped beside me, his presence solid grounding, and held his phone up slightly so Mark could see the screen still recording. "Say it again," Darren said quietly. "Everything you just told her." Mark's mouth opened, closed. His eyes darted between us, searching for an exit that didn't exist. "This is a setup," he snapped finally. "You tricked me." "No," I said. "You lied. We just stopped pretending." Mark laughed a sharp, brittle sound. "You don't understand," he said, turning to Darren. "She's twisting this. You know me. You know I'd never hurt you." Darren looked at him like he was seeing him for the first time. "I know you kept photos of my ex for years," Darren said. "I know you sent them to my girlfriend and told her I was cheating. I know you watched her almost fall apart because you wanted me single." Mark's composure cracked. "I was trying to protect you," he shot back. "She's not right for you." Darren's jaw tightened. "You don't get to decide that." "I've been there for you longer than she has," Mark burst out. Heads turned at nearby tables. "I've loved you for 8 years, and you never even looked at me like that." There it was. The truth finally stripped bare. Darren exhaled slowly. "I'm straight," he said. "You've always known that." "Feelings don't care about that," Mark shouted. "I thought if you just saw that relationships with women don't last, if I could show you how much I care." "So your plan was to break my heart," I said, "and hope he'd run to you afterward." Mark looked at me with something close to hatred. "It sounds worse when you say it like that." "That's because it is worse," Darren replied. "It's manipulative, it's cruel, and it ends now." Mark's voice dropped, turned venomous. "You're choosing her over 8 years of friendship." "Yes," Darren said without hesitation. "I am." Mark's face twisted. "You'll regret this. She's already turned you against me. She went through my social media, my past. She's controlling." Darren lifted his phone slightly. "I investigated because your story didn't add up. That's not controlling. That's protecting my relationship." I watched something inside Mark collapse. The confident manipulator, the martyr. All that was left was a desperate man scrambling for control. I recorded everything, Darren continued. Every lie, every admission. "That's illegal," Mark shouted. "One-party consent," Darren said flatly. "Look it up." Mark looked at me one last time. "You think you've won," he said. "But when he hurts you, and he will, I won't be there to pick up the pieces." I met his gaze without flinching. I'd rather be alone than trust someone who weaponizes love. Mark left the cafe shaking, knocking his chair over as he went. He didn't look back. The fallout was immediate. Within days, Mark started telling his version of the story to mutual friends. In his version, I was manipulative. Darren was isolated. He was the victim of jealousy and paranoia. So we showed receipts. Darren organized everything. Photos with timestamps, screenshots of Mark's old posts, the recording from the cafe, the messages Mark had sent me, fishing for updates. We sent it to everyone who reached out concerned. The responses came fast. I had no idea. He told me something completely different. This is disturbing. Within 3 days, the narrative Mark had built collapsed under the weight of truth. Friends distanced themselves. Invitations dried up. Someone confronted him at a group dinner, and he stormed out. One message stuck with me. I always thought something was off about how he talked about Darren, an old college friend wrote. I just never thought he'd go this far. Neither had we. But the damage was done. And there was still one final chapter left to close. 3 weeks passed before Mark tried one last time. He showed up at Darren's workplace during lunch. I wasn't there. Darren told me about it later that night. His voice steady but tight around the edges, like he was recounting something that had already been processed but still left residue. Mark hadn't called ahead. He'd just appeared, eyes red, face drawn, desperation clinging to him like a second skin. He walked straight up to Darren's desk while half the office pretended not to stare. "Please," Mark said, his voice already breaking. "I made a mistake. I know I did. But I loved you for so long, and it messed me up. You have to understand that." Darren stood up slowly. "You need to leave," he said. "Just 5 minutes," Mark begged. 5 minutes to explain. "I gave you 8 years," Darren replied. "You used them to save photos for future manipulation and lie to my girlfriend's face. There's nothing left to explain." Mark's expression flickered. "I started therapy," he said quickly. "Twice a week. I'm getting help." "That's good," Darren said. "That's for you. It doesn't undo what you did to us." People were openly watching now, Mark noticed. his voice sharp in desperation, tipping into anger. "You think you're better than me," he snapped. "You think she's worth all this. She'll hurt you eventually. They always do." Darren didn't raise his voice. "Even if she did, which she won't, I'd never turn to someone who tried to destroy my life with calculated lies." Security was already on their way. Mark left before they arrived, but not before half the office had witnessed the scene. Darren's manager pulled him aside, afterward asked if everything was okay, if additional safety measures were needed. That night we talked, really talked. Not just about Mark, but about us. "You could have believed him," Darren said quietly. "Most people would have." "I almost did," I admitted. 12 photos. The crying, the performance. But something felt wrong. And if I was going to lose you, I needed to be sure first. He nodded slowly. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. "Or at least trusting your instincts about me." I smiled faintly. "I'm just glad I checked the timestamps." He laughed, then the first real laugh in weeks. Who knew metadata would save our relationship? As for Mark, the last we heard, he wasn't doing well. He lost most of his friend group when the truth came out. A few people still defended him, saying he was just in love, but they were in the minority. He moved about a month later. New job, new city, new start. 2 weeks after that, he emailed Darren. It was long, apologetic, self-aware in a way that felt rehearsed but not entirely fake. "I know you probably hate me. You might always, but I'm working on myself. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I understand how wrong I was." Darren read it once, then closed his laptop. "Are you going to respond?" I asked. "No," he said. "He's not my responsibility anymore. Cold, maybe, but necessary. 8 years of friendship doesn't entitle someone to forgiveness after they try to blow up your life with deliberate lies." Darren and I are stronger now than we were before all of this. We're moving in together next month. Our parents met last weekend, awkward in all the expected ways, but good. Sometimes Darren still gets quiet. 8 years is a long time to lose someone, even when they turn out to be rotten at the core. When that happens, I give him space. Grief doesn't disappear just because the truth is ugly. The biggest lesson in all of this is simple: trust your gut, but verify before you react. Those photos look damning. Anyone would have believed them. If I'd confronted Darren that night in anger, accused him, maybe even ended things on the spot, Mark would have gotten exactly what he wanted, and the damage might have been irreversible.